cartoon color superior? Original Generation 1 toy inferior? Here's your look at the brand new Hasbro Transformers 40th Anniversary Walmart exclusive Soundwave. Re-experience the nostalgia of your favorite G1 action figures with the Transformers Retro Soundwave, Laserbeak, and Ravage toys. Transformers Retro G1 action figures are designed like the original releases and feature vintage styling, accessories, and exclusive package art and tech specs inspired by the classic toy releases. Clip out and save the on-box tech specs to share, then see how this Transformers collectible figure stacks up against other heroic Autobots and evil Decepticons. I think the Autobots better be aware that there's this animation-inspired decoed Decepticon. Took me a while to get that all remembered. Just before, of course, we get a closer look at the 40th Anniversary Soundwave, which as far as I know is a Walmart exclusive. The tape measure is going to tell us that the figure stands 6.5 inches in height, or 40th Anniversary Soundwave is 16.5 centimeters tall. Now, growing up as a kid, I never had the original Generation 1 Soundwave. My friend at school did, and frequently he would bring in not only his Soundwave, but also Optimus Prime, so I sort of lived vicariously through him. My collection of Transformers, in fact, was rather odd. Leading the Autobots was an Optimus Prime. I got an Ultra Magnus instead, and never having a Megatron, I would have Shockwave as sort of my stand-in leader there. But never having a Soundwave, at least this figure in this mold was re-released several times over the years, and I did pick up a couple when I had a few extra dollars to spend. There was first of all the Toys R Us exclusive version of Soundwave. The thing about this guy is not only does he have the double tape deck, so on paper the idea of being able to store more than one cassette inside of his body was good, until you sort of got this guy in hand, and the plastic felt cheaper and lighter than the other ones we would get later on. There was also as well a commemorative version of Soundwave that was released, I believe, as a Walmart exclusive. Never got it at local stores, but I had to order it online. I ended up ordering more than one, so at least I could keep one sealed, so it still looked like the original Generation 1 packaging, and then I have one loose. Unfortunately, though, looseness, he's a little loose in the knees, not to mention the stickers have started all peeling off of his body. Not that you may need them, but 40th Anniversary Soundwave does come included with an instruction booklet of how to transform him. If you've done this once or twice in your life, you probably can already do this with your eyes closed. We're going to start things first, obviously, in his robot mode, and then we'll transform it back down to his tape deck mode. On the back end, though, of the instructions, I'll show you how to transform both Ravage and Laserbeak. Let's move those off to the side. Speaking of Ravage and Laserbeak, those are his two tape companions. We're going to start things first with Laserbeak. I just happen to have the commemorative version of Laserbeak right here so you guys see the difference between the two. Obviously, this is the one that looks the most like the original Generation 1 toy. That if you don't have the chance, maybe you don't even have the available funds to get that first Generation 1 release of him, the commemorative version that was, again, exclusive to Walmart is probably your best bet. This does have the Decepticon rub symbol there on the top. This one does not, but it does have the printed tempos there, the Decepticon logos in either one of his wings. It doesn't look as convincing of an actual tape when you flip it around to the back. If, again, we flip this one around to the back and maybe just flip it around, you can see like this has like the text stickers there on the side where it kind of keeps more, even though it is a chrome finish there on the stickers, it kind of keeps the colors, again, like a little bit more muted. Transforming this guy, again, is super easy. He does, of course, come included with the accompanying cannons, the little laser things that he has on the tops of his body. But the transform is, again, pretty straightforward. You're basically just going to, first of all, fold out the wings. And you'll have to excuse me, obviously, if you've already done this. If you already have Laserbeak, I'm sure over the years you probably have transformed this guy countless times already. It's basically just going to bring forward the neck, and you basically have yourself Laserbeak. If we're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing on this side. Now I've transformed this one a little bit more often, so he's going to be a little bit more looser. Just, again, bring down the legs, bring front and center his head, which basically just going to peel forward like this. Slide it forward. Now we got ourselves Laserbeak from the commemorative version. I did want to obviously show you guys the differences between the two. I guess one of the biggest things obviously is not only just the color, but if you look at the placement of where his eyes are too, instead of having the eyes lower down here, you actually see that? Instead of having the eyes a little bit lower down here, the newer version of Soundwave actually does have Laserbeak's eyes further up. I feel like they probably could have still brought them down. I mean, they did obviously want to make this a little bit more like the cartoon, but I feel like the eyes are maybe too close to the top of his head. And looking at the top, obviously, commemorative would have had the Decepticon logo sticker there. This is always one thing that the stickers are always prone to peeling off. Just it's an odd place to really put a sticker. But this one, obviously, from the cartoon, doesn't have that at all. He, of course, does have his top cannon pieces. just before we actually put them on him, I want to show you guys what they look like. Yeah, unfortunately, they still have the stump cannons there on the front. The commemorative version would have been basically the exact same. Although the commemorative would have actually vac chromed this in plastic, where what they did end up doing here is that if I'm looking at the peg, and I'm assuming this, it looks like they probably have molded this in black plastic, and then they probably would have painted it over in silver. Either way, though, it basically just plugs into the provided holes here on the top. So we're going to plug in the one on one side, and we'll do the exact same thing on the other. Obviously, this is going to be, depending on how you really want to display Soundwave. I also have myself a buzzsaw. Buzzsaw was also one of the things that came included with the original Generation 1 Soundwave, but I love the idea that they actually gave us a Laserbeak. And again, if we just do that the exact same thing here with the other Laserbeak, we'll just plug in the provided cannons that he has. You know, again, the only thing that's disappointing, though, is that the cannon barrels are too short and stumpy. I know, yes, safety precautions, obviously, like Optimus Prime's smokestacks. We have to keep them short so no kid pokes out his eyes. Do I have those facing the right way? Now that I'm realizing I don't. Let's just flip these around right now. I've got to get that going the right way. There we go. That made a little bit more sense. Wonder how many people actually noticed that. We'll just do the exact same on this side as well. Want to make sure we've got these facing the right way. There we go. So obviously there is the commemorative version of Laserbeak on one side. There is now the 40th anniversary version of Laserbeak. Exact same mold, obviously just applied a little bit differently when it comes to paint deco. Move that off to the side. The other tape that he comes included with is that of Ravage. Ravage, though, one thing that's interesting about Ravage is he feels heavier. By the way, I'm just introducing here the commemorative version of Ravage. He feels somewhat a little heavier than the one we got before. If you're looking at this, it's a little less convincing of an actual tape. I mean, you're looking at the front like this. I guess that would be the front. Would that be the front? I guess that would be the front. It doesn't look as convincing and perhaps as a tape like Laserbeak would be. And there, if we flip this around here, you can see, there we go. Ravage's head on either side. Now, the newer one from the 40th anniversary does actually have Ravage's eye in red. The original commemorative version would have had that in gold. But again, like the placement of the eye, even though it's about the same spot, it's more of a triangle here on the commemorative version. And on the 40th anniversary, it's a little bit more of a slit. Transforming Ravage is still super easy. I'm just going to fold back the tail, fold forward the head. And then basically you just want to offset the legs. So you want to make sure kind of the legs are, one's a little bit further back than the other. The idea really in mind is supposed to have Ravage really balancing on both those legs, but if anybody's ever owned a Ravage, you know yourself. These things never really stay properly. I mean, he always is prone to falling forward, but basically you get Ravage looking like that. And we'll do the exact same thing on this Ravage. Again, we'll just fold back the tail, fold forward the head, and then just bring around the legs. Somewhere sitting in my collection, more in a tote, I'm sure, in storage, I have myself an original Generation 1 Ravage. I sort of started to collect some of the older cassettes. It's one of my favorite things that Transformers doing back in the 80s. I have this one, and I think I also have a Rat Bat sitting somewhere, too. But here's the original Ravage. Here's the newer Ravage. I mean, obviously, the sticker application is completely gone here for the 40th anniversary version. Kind of keeping really more just the plastic. There's more cool to the touch, but I don't think a lot of it's metal. Of course, he does have, again, like the little cannon pieces. The cannons basically just sit on the back section of his body. And like with Laserbeaks, it looks to be, I mean, if you look at the inside of it, it looks like it is actually molded in black plastic. And then they would have just painted the silver over top of it. Well, make sure, of course, we've got him facing the right way this time around. And those just plug on the back of his body. Ravage, though, never stands properly. You can do your best to try to balance him, but Ravage never really does the best. Oh, maybe there, maybe there. Okay, we'll just keep him somewhat like that. And of course, with Ravage, I've also got, again, the commemorative version. Commemorative still is going to be using the vac chrome plastic. It hasn't shipped yet. I mean, I haven't had this one actually very long, maybe a couple of years. Just plugging those in place. And again, like the differences between the two, if you like more of the cartoon colors, the new 40th anniversary Ravage looks definitely a lot more better. If you like, though, the Generation 1 version of Ravage, then obviously you want to maybe stick with this version instead. So those are all the cassettes now that come included with Soundwave. If I can actually get, is he now good? Oh, good. He's going to stand. We'll go ahead and bring in Laserbeak as well. The other accessories, though, that come included with Soundwave are obviously his AA batteries. One serves as a shoulder cannon. The other one serves as a cannon he holds in his hands. This one, actually, you just pop out. And then he also comes included with these little pieces. The pieces snap in place, and they snap in such a way that you would imagine this to be able to fire off. These never have fired. Maybe the original 80s toy did, but the newer ones, even the version, the commemorative version, never fires either. There's a button there on the top. Without that, you basically, these lock in place. You kind of have to press a little button on the top to release them. And just to bring in, I think I actually have it on the back of the cassette here. Yeah, there's the double A's there that were part of the commemorative version. We're just going to pop those out right now. Kind of giving it away already that the storage space for those are just on the back of his body, serving as obviously the batteries that would have powered this too. Now, like the commemorative version, I also have some stickers that I applied on the ends there. They have still stayed on pretty well. But again, like this one retracts out, this one basically just sits on top of his shoulder. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. Plug this on one side, and then we'll go ahead and just attach the other one into his hand. He has the benefit, at least, of having holes on both sides of his body. So you can have the figure displayed with his arm cannon or his weapon on either side of his body. He does also come included with 2 additional pieces, which really, when you are transforming Soundwave, it's the only thing that really gets left behind. There's no storage space for this. There's no other place that you can actually put this, at least with the batteries. The back of Soundwave's body still has, again, that compartment space. Also has a little clip that you can clip onto his belt. But this basically slides open. You then take your AA shoulder-mounted cannon. You also take as well the AA cannon or arm gun that he has, and basically will just store on the back of the figure's body. We'll look more at that in a second when we look at the figure's articulation, and then, of course, we're going to transform this guy. So let's remove everything out of the way here. Obviously, if you ever have owned a Soundwave or even familiar with the character in the cartoon, he does also have the tape deck that opens up. The tape deck is pretty much like the figure, generally quite stiff. Using this mold as much as they really have, I was really expecting this figure to come out of the packaging overly loose, maybe arms, shoulders, maybe even in the elbow or even in the legs. But the joints, everything on this figure are nice and tight, and that's really a good thing. Obviously, we're going to be transforming this guy in a second. I did want to show you guys, first of all, the head sculpt. Instead of actually having more of the familiar yellow eyes, now the cartoon colors gives him red eyes instead. He does have a little bit of post belly, so of course you can rotate his head back and forth. One of the other things also about Soundwave, and I'm just going to bring back in the one that I wanted to transform these guys, because eventually when I do transform this guy into his tape deck, I did want to show you guys what the differences between the two were. Now, this one would have had the gold trim around the tape deck section and a sticker application there of the Decepticon logo. The Soundwave that we get actually now is printed the Decepticon logo, and he has the yellow outline like he would have in the cartoon. He also would have been gone. Really, most of the stickers on this figure has now been replaced with printing. So instead of having the worry of stickers peeling off on the ends of his forearms, for example, the little red lines, for example, have printed on. And he doesn't also have any additional stickers down below, but he does have some nice additional silver now. And the little fan, the little, I guess, grates, little slots that he has there in his knees. Everything on this guy, by the way, if you were familiar with the figure or the original toy, would have had die-cast metal. The die-cast obviously isn't going to be in his body, but he does have it, though, in the lower half of his, like in his feet, for example. So these are still cool to the touch. So there's a little bit of weight down below there for his feet. If you guys did, though, want to transform him, again, you're probably already familiar with how to transform Soundwave countless times already. But basically, you're just going to rotate the head around, fold this down, pop the hands in on either side, and then you're just going to take the forearms or take the entire shoulders and just bring those to the back, just like that. Now, one thing I did do when getting this guy prepared for the review is that the shoulders usually sit out a little bit further. There's like a gap on either side. I usually like to bring the shoulders a little bit more closer to his body like that, so it just looks a little bit more like the cartoon. I actually do that even with the commemorative version as well. But you want to just make sure that these are brought out just a little bit. Then you're going to bring the shoulders back like this, sort of snap them in place, and then you're just going to drop the arms to the side of his body, and those also snap in place like that. Take the legs fold in, feet fold in, I should say. You rotate the legs, rotate the leg, and then you bring this forward, or bring this up. Bring it up on the other side, and then you just tuck these up. And you may also just want to snap these in place as well. And you got yourself a pretty believable looking Soundwave as he looked in the original cartoon. It still has the play button there on the front, the fast forward and rewind on either side. It still also has the speaker adjustments. Those also work there as well. From the back of it, obviously, there's still the storage space, so you just open that on the back. Take yourself the arm cannon here. I keep calling it arm cannon, the little gun that he has. Pop that together. Get the other battery. Where's the battery? It's right over here. And these will basically then just store on the back of the figure's body. You want to make sure that they sort of offset them like that. And then you're just going to, like if you were to install batteries on the original 80s toy, you just pop those in place. Oh, you want to make sure that you've got the tab all the way in there. And that just folds in nice and convenient. Bringing back in, let's just move these out of the way. Bringing back in the other Soundwaves. Again, there was the Soundwave from the commemorative version. Here's the Soundwave from the Toys R Us Anniversary Edition. Again, very similar to one another. This one is still one of my least favorites. This one and the commemorative version, at least one thing they did have is still the original sticker application. So you've got, for example, stereo micro cassette recorder on the one side. You've got record on the other. The Toys R Us version also did have this as well. It had the Decepticon sticker. And again, when you're looking at the two, this one does have the double tape deck. So if you have more than one cassette, it'll just store in the front of his body. The plastic still, though, feels light. It has weight, though, still in the die-cast metal on his feet. But one thing it's lacking, though, it doesn't have as much the weight. Like, for example, if you're comparing it with the commemorative version. If you're also, as well, comparing it with the 40th anniversary, it does feel a little bit light, I don't want to say hollow, but I feel like the plastic, they changed things up when it came to the commemorative version. And again, you're comparing the commemorative. You've got the one that looks a little bit more like the Generation 1 toy. Still has, again, the open and closed tape deck. But if you like the classic cartoon, I really like the look of this one. I have seen several of the Generation 1 cartoon color version characters. Man, that's a lot of C's. At my local Walmart. They had, at one point, they had Hot Rod, and they also had, I believe, Skywarp. I passed on both of them. The only other one I could probably see myself getting is Blaster. Just because, again, like Blaster, like Soundwave, is something, again, like having them more in the classic colors like this works really well for the character. Again, really, when you're looking at it, again, if given the choice, really, and I'm just going to bring these out on either side here. If really given the choice, I would really prefer to have as part of my really Transformer collection of figures. Now I'm going back and trying to pick up now. I would much rather really have the way they look in the original Generation 1 toy than the cartoon. That's probably one of the reasons why I haven't decided to pick up like Hot Rod and any of the others. But Soundwave I have a soft spot for. There's something to be said about this figure. It was one of those toys that I always really wish I had as a kid. As I already mentioned, instead of having an Optimus Prime, I had an Ultra Magnus. Yeah, again, you know the story. But I like the look of this one. I think the colors work really, really well for him. I mean, keeping, again, like the more pastel blues and then the outlining there of the yellow, it really does make the figure pop. Ultimately, though, I'm still going to have this guy displayed on my shelf in robot mode, like with the other two Soundwaves. But really considering that even though I am a big Generation 1 toy fan, I like the colors of the cartoon here for Soundwave, and I was really glad I got the chance to pick this one up. When it comes to my Walmarts, absolute wasteland when it comes to new figures and toys. And yet, though, surprisingly, we always do really well with Transformers. The one thing I don't collect myself. I might pick up the occasional Transformer, but it's more based on really liking that specific character, or maybe I had the original Generation 1 toy as a kid that I would pick up the newer one. But more times than not, I usually walk past that section completely in the toy aisle. There has been times, lots of times in fact, I've seen the 40th anniversary reissues that Hasbro's put out. At some point, I've held in my hand a Hot Rod, a Thundercracker, a Hound at one point, and now as Soundwave. But the thing always seems to happen. I pick it up, I look at it, and I think, hey, that's pretty cool that Hasbro's reissued these. But then it immediately follows with, I wish that they had reissued them the way they looked in the original 80s toy. I mean, yes, it's using the same mold, but coloring it in a cartoon color scheme may not appeal to everybody. I mean, there might be some like myself that would rather just have the figure or the toy look like they did in the 80s. That would be the same like if Hasbro reissued some of the O-ring G.I. Joes and colored them the way they looked in the Sunbow cartoon. Could you imagine slicked back Duke, the 80s toy version of him being cartoon colors? Probably the same thing. I would pick it up, I would look at it and think, oh, hey, that's kind of cool, and then put it back. And for that reason and that reason alone, I've never picked up any of the 40th anniversary reissue Transformers for that same idea. I'd rather them look like the original retro toys. Soundwave was also one of those instances where when I first came across them, there were 8 on the shelf, and I picked them up, and I looked at them, and I thought the same thing I just finished saying. I put it back on the shelf, I walked away. Then a week or so went by, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, I already have the commemorative version of Soundwave. So that's not going to replace necessarily one that looks like the original toy. But the idea of getting now one that looks the way he looks in the cartoon, I already like the mold. I'm quite familiar with the mold. Getting one, though, in the way he looks in the 80s cartoon might not be a bad thing at all. And of course, that'd be the one time I would go back to that Walmart and they would be completely sold out. Because Walmart is, if you're familiar with Walmart, Walmart tends to stock something once. And then the moment it sells out, you never see it again. So I thought the same thing would end up happening for Soundwave. I'd see it once, I'd leave, I'd come back, and sure enough, it would be completely gone. I came back, though, today, and instead of having the 8, they had the 2. Well, I only really need the 1. I end up putting it in my cart, and now of course, we're having them look at him in this review. $60 or so. This guy's like 66 something here in Canada. For that, of course, you get the original based on the original mold toy, along with his comrades, his colleagues, Laserbeak and Ravage. The figure looks good. I don't think I would ever say he replaces the original 80s toy. So if you're looking to go out of your way, obviously, to get one that looks like the one that we got from the 80s, it's going to be using the same mold, but the colors are going to be completely different. If you already have the original one, like I have, say, the commemorative, which is about the closest thing we have to that, then getting one in cartoon colors is not going to be one where I'm expecting it to replace the original vintage toy. It's only just adding to the ones I already have in my collection. I don't see myself ever wanting to go back and pick up an original hot rod. I have a hot rod that came with a Target Master. Same thing can be said for Hound. I don't have a Hound, but I'd rather a reissue Hound of the way he looks from the vintage toy, not with cartoon colors. How do you guys feel about that? When it comes to reissues that Hasbro's been doing with the 40th anniversary Transformers, do you like the idea of them being reissued with cartoon colors? Or like myself, you'd rather if they could just be reissued the way that they looked in the original 80s toy? Let me know down below in the comments section. As it stands right now, depending on, obviously, depending on where you're going for your Walmarts, I've heard some people that just say that their Walmarts are just fully stocked with everything. And then there's other people like myself that go to their Walmarts and it's like, just close your eyes and hope for the best that there's something actually down that aisle without just old stock of stuff that's just sitting and nobody's buying it. Mine is usually that, but I just happened to luck out this time around and got myself the 40th anniversary Soundwave. But again, what do you guys think of this line? Let me know down below in the comments section. A pass or ones that you guys have been picking up? If you guys have also wanted to be sticking around to this channel, obviously, we may not always be looking at Transformers. There's always tons of stuff that you guys be checking out here. If you haven't already, obviously, I can suggest maybe go in the direction of hitting that subscribe. Why not? You can also as well turn on the bell notifications so you're going to get reminders every single time new content is going up. Of course, we're always going to have new videos coming your way, guys. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.